Well, hello everybody. My name is Tony Baez, and I happen to be the Executive Director of the Council for the Spanish-Speaking here in Milwaukee. I come here today to you somewhat with some ambivalence. I have to be very candid about that, because I'm dealing within a community that is very complex, and a community that has taken different kinds of size on this issue of the mayor's takeover. And I think that personally, you know where I stand on that, and that I clearly have indicated to too many people that in my own community and in the community at large, and to my friend Bob Peterson, every once in a while I write to Bob about this, that a major takeover is a major mistake. That this is not the kind of thing that in a democracy we ought to tolerate, okay? That in a democracy, if we really want people to be participants and be a part of changing systems, we have to do the best to make sure that institutions are not sort of like lending themselves to be a part of this takeover of a mentality of business in particular that is really driven by the few people that control capital, and that in controlling capital, they control an ideology and a hegemony that suggests to all folks that they can run the world, that they can run monetary systems that in fact have contributed significantly to what's happening in third world countries and what we're doing in third world countries that are taking away democracy, that allow coups, that allow the kinds of things that we're seeing in the world that we care about, particularly in third world countries, where a lot of this privatization is happening, as our previous speakers have mentioned. I am particularly, as an individual, very concerned about not letting that to happen. The old Aristotle, you know, the philosopher, used to say, in all his contradictions and all the wrong things that he did, because he wasn't a good friend of women, by the way, and he wasn't a good friend of democracy in many ways, but he once in a while will say something intelligent. And he would say, you know, like, we come together in the city-states because in the city-states we believe in survival, and we come together to survive, but we stay together in pursuit of the good life, okay? The pursuit of the good life, as you well know, historically has been a very difficult thing, because communities, as they grow and they enter into the contradictions of power, they begin to address the great diversity of thinking that happens, and we need to learn, particularly in our world, how to disagree with ideas, but not necessarily with people, okay? And in building democracies, you have contradictions that are often driven by power and by money. And that's happening in Milwaukee, okay? So I can say, I believe from the evidence, very strongly, that the evidence suggests to me that it is wrong for mayors to take over school districts. It is wrong. They should not do it. Okay? When I read somebody like Diane Ravitch, and I was just talking to Larry a little bit about that, who used to be on the very conservative side, and I debated her in 1996 in New York about some other issue, you know, and all of a sudden she comes out and she says, this is wrong, you know? And I go, well, there's a scientist that maybe has it together, you know? And she's saying some interesting things, and I applaud the fact that she's able to do that. But I also know that people of goodwill that look at the evidence will conclude as we have, okay? And will say, no, there's something wrong. Why Chicago? Why New York? Why all these? Something is wrong. Yet at the same time, they did it in those big cities, okay? In those big cities, in spite of people like us, and groups like us, the people of power managed to take over school districts, managed to take over school boards, okay? They did that. It's unfortunate, it's wrong, but they did that. People at the community level, like in New York, are doing all kinds of stuff to try to stop that, okay? And they organize, and they come together, and they fight every day, and they try to do it within their schools and within their communities. In Chicago, this didn't happen by accident. Chicago went through a lot of stuff, okay? It happened, okay? In our communities, and in my particular community, in the Latin community of Milwaukee, there's a lot of people that, you know, run organizations, run groups, and they appear in a press conference behind the mayor, okay? And you go like, oh my God, why did they do that, okay? You go like, yeah, then you write some private notes to them and say, come on, you know, I work with you on this other issue, I work with you on this other issue, but why that? Why didn't you wait until we had a discussion about the evidence, okay? And they will write back to me with little things like, you know, we're tired of waiting for so long until the school district gets it together and our kids are educated well. And sometimes they're right about that. They're right about the fact that our districts continue in the struggle of making improvements that will improve the life, that will improve the quality of life and that search for the good life that our communities of color have, okay? But in a democracy, we have to find ways of making sure that we continue that fight, okay? In a democracy, we have to increase dialogue. When I look at what President Obama is doing with health reform, what he's doing with immigration, I nauseate about that, okay? It pisses me off, okay? Because I'm saying, my gosh, we got him elected to make sure that we had the kind of health reform that was based and grounded on equity, okay? That was based on the fact and the high moral standard that we had to do that. So even though I vote for him and I applaud his efforts and I do all that stuff, there are some things where I disagree. I strongly disagree with Afghanistan. I strongly disagree with what's happening with health reform. I disagree with that ridiculous, okay, compensation package for the very rich that still have their mansions in New York and in California and all of that. I still believe that his choice for Secretary of Education was rather dumb, okay? You see what I'm saying? Yet at the same time, if I have to vote again, I vote for him. Because I don't want to vote for somebody from the right, okay? If I have to vote, okay, I don't know, but respect my opinion, okay? Okay? Well, I don't care, just forget that, okay? And I'm not talking to her, but the issue here is this, okay? The issue here is this. In this state, that governor and this mayor, okay, we may disagree very strongly with them, okay? But can you imagine if the right-wing positions people in the opposition that could win and could make it more difficult for us to build a democracy? That is the same issue that we have in our communities. We need to continue that conversation. Some of the people in these agencies, some of the people in leadership roles are not necessarily bad people. They may be confused. They may not be very educated about some of these things, okay? We need to work towards that. We need to work them to educate them so that they can come and view some of our rationale about this stuff, and we need to convince them that this idea of a major takeover is wrong, okay? It has to be the kind of convincing that will allow us to bring more people into our side and that will allow us to ensure that more people take the strong position that building a democracy is a very difficult thing, that it has to include community, that people have to vote, that people have to be at the table looking at solutions and ways of doing things, okay? That we need to get more resources and more money into this district so that more training is done with the people that work in a district like that at all levels, okay? In classrooms, in schools, in communities everywhere, and that we need to stop this craziness of taking the resources and the money and putting it only in the hands of the few, okay? I want to work with people that want to support building a democracy, but I do not want to demonize or make everybody the enemy. We are not in a situation like that in this country, and we're not in the situation in this community, okay? Thank you.